on time.
Sure. All right, so we got a few seconds left here.
Seconds. Yeah.
Well, Happy New Year, everyone.
You're good to go.
Happy New Year.
Happy New
New Year to you.
All righty, let's call this regular meeting of the Governance Committee to order. We have a quorum. Uh, Actually, what I'd like to do is the first item of business is I'm going to read what is the stated purpose of this committee, which is only 3 sentences long, just so we understand what we're doing here in the Governance Committee. So the charter of the Governance Committee says the Governance Committee will assist the board in developing and monitoring the effectiveness of the board, including trustee appointment and reappointment, engagement, education, self-evaluation, and fiduciary conduct of the board and committees. That's the purpose of this particular committee. And there's a long list of responsibilities that we won't go into here, but it was helpful to me to understand what obviously what the charter is. And over time, we'll circle back and check off all these points. So the first official act of this particular meeting is to approve the minutes from the September 25th, 2024 meeting. Are the minutes subject to approval as written? Do I hear a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes as written of the September 25th, 2024 governance meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Okay. So the ayes have it, and the minutes stand approved. Included in our board book was the Board of Trustees policy number 07. I thought it would be appropriate that we present this as a subject for consideration, really not just today. We won't go into detail, but I wanted to basically initiate action. This is the delegation of authority, which I think is probably one of the more profound policies that this board has adopted. And it would be worthwhile, particularly for me as a new member, and I suspect for all the new members, to spend time to understand both the intention of this delegation and gaining from our veteran members the experience of it. And we have the advantage of a CEO that we would be able to work with to discuss these items and maybe gain a mutual understanding. So what I would plan to do is work with our Chief Legal Officer, James Wellens, who will assist us in how we may structure this review in future meetings. So what I would propose we do is just put this on our agenda and come back to this to the board and this committee in a more detailed fashion as we begin to prepare its review. So I would say to the committee members and board members, take the time over the next month or so to read the policy, raise the questions that come to mind, and inform me of those questions, and we'll begin to figure out how we can make sure we understand it, that particularly our CEO, who it's directed to, understands it. So Dr. Alexander will be asking you to do the same and say, what is your understanding of these statements based on your experience in the job? And together, I think we can come to a sense of whether any changes are appropriate. And I'm not at this moment asserting that changes are necessary, but in light of recent experiences, we might feel the opportunity to sharpen maybe some communication. And I know much of this stuff is written by and for lawyers. I'm not a lawyer, and I tend to think if I were to direct an action to a manager, I might write it a little differently than this. And so our opportunity is maybe to reflect on, as a managerial document, how does it communicate as well? Not to change the legal positions at all, but maybe augment it with a little clearer understanding of what action is. And I offer as just something that strikes me, I think a legal doctrine is reasonableness. And a lot of caseloads and lawyers deal with this word reasonable as a sort of a standard. if I were a manager receiving a charge from a superior saying, do what's reasonable out there, I would have lots of questions. Well, wait a minute, what do you mean by that? And by whose standard is reasonable? So those are interesting thoughts I've had on this doctrine as we contemplate it. So I would ask you to read it in that same light. Are
Hey,
there
Mike.
any? Yes?
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is John Corlett. What might be helpful too when we talk this through, I'm sort of looking at John Moss and Maureen and maybe Dr. Walker too, those who've been around longer to kind of maybe, I don't know whether this document has changed over time. I think it's certainly different than when I worked at the hospital. So it'd be interesting to know too, like how it's evolved and why that is and all of that. So
That's a great point. So evolution. And so who can help us with that besides the John and Harry? Do you have thoughts on just on?
Well, it predates me. I mean, when I joined the board in September of 21, this was already in place. I don't know, John he's been there a lot longer than I have. Maybe he knows when it went into effect. Do you know anything more about this, John?
I cannot recall. Again, it's been a while, so it would be interesting to see where it was 10, 15 years ago and where it is today, and if it changed and why. Sorry.
Yeah, Maureen?
Yeah, same.
Okay. All right. That's a good indication that we
Yeah,
should
that tells me
spend
it's a
some
great
time.
opportunity here for us to
Yeah.
look at this thing and maybe
refresh.
it's probably time that we took a look at it because it sounds like it's at least 10 or 15 years old, so we need to look at it.
All righty, good. Well, it's before us on this particular committee's agenda. We'll begin to shape the conversation in a more detailed fashion, and I would ask each of you to spend some time reading it and identifying questions that you might have. And Ron, you would be particularly helpful to understand how such a document might have existed at other healthcare institutions that you're familiar with. That would be a good perspective. All righty. The second item that's on our agenda is board recruitment. And we have 3 open positions on the board. And actually, Dr. Walker is scheduled, well, his term ends in March and hopefully will be reappointed as well. So Dr. Walker, let me ask you, what more do we want to talk about at this point in the meeting about board recruitment?
Well, the board, at least to my knowledge, hasn't officially released the names. I know there are 3 candidates they are looking at, and I don't think they've been officially released, so we probably shouldn't, delve into that right now. In the past, what we've done is we've tried to maintain a list so if people know if people are interested, we can function those through Tamika to let the council know if we have people we know interested. We've also did a skills list to kind of make the county council aware of where we as a board say if we need X, Y, Z. I believe one of the 3 people that are being considered is a lawyer because we have let them know that with Ina Joe leaving that we probably would benefit from having another lawyer. I mean, we can. So maybe I don't know how long it's been since we did the skills assessment. Maybe we need to look at that again and see with the new makeup of this board, are there things that we want to suggest? It's obviously up to the council who they and the county and the executive who they nominate to run through the judge process, but it can be a collaborative to the degree we can make suggestions or things or tell them if there are things that we identify that we think would be helpful. That's how we've done in the past, and at times they've been receptive to, things we identify that we need X, Y, or Z.
That's good advice and suggestion. And my John?
Yeah, I would suggest that somehow we get them part of the process. A county exec has a person that works on. I think Dave works on this stuff, and so like I think these 3 that came up really we weren't really part of any of that. So just again, as Dr. Walker said, it's all the county execs. It's his prerogative, et cetera, et cetera. But it would be nice if we can get maybe a little bit more part of the process with them, like that they would talk to us before, or we give an opportunity to give our opinion before our selections are made.
And Mr. Summers, can I add to what John said? because I
Sure,
think it's
please.
important. I think it's important at this point. I think that we were all anticipating reappointment of existing board members, and there had been some, conversation around that. And of course, now that's not happening. And so I'm thinking like John Moss that we need to voice anyone else who's coming up, like Dr. Walker, some kind of way. We need to voice our need, our preference, what we believe would, create stability. I think we do need to somehow not only just voice it, but communicate it in some way. Because I don't think yes, it's their prerogative. We all understand that. But as we're working together and moving in a certain direction, we're, kind of depending on some of the individuals who have these skills. And I would not like to have a similar circumstance that we're kind of up against now.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, thanks, Sharon. I think one of the dynamics is that the county executive team is all new as well. So they don't really know us, or at least historically. They don't know our work. I think they probably go on what they hear in the community, which I'm sure there's a lot of stuff going on in terms of what's being shared in the community. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's brand new, and I thought perhaps there would be an opportunity to get to know them better if they expressed an interest. But I don't think. I think that's yeah, you're right. I think it's a missed opportunity that definitely has to happen. I agree.
That's good advice. And I think it's my responsibility as chair of this committee to follow through on that. And I will take that advice and I will follow through. I'm at this moment in time, I believe the two key contacts at the county executive's office are David Rosum, who's deputy chief of staff, and Chris Alvarado. They seem to be the folks who are engaged, and I will seek close contact with them. So I will follow through and keep you posted. And in return, if you've got, as we get closer, so we've got Harry due to be reappointed hopefully this March, and then a year from now, John Corlett and I are up for reappointment. So my experience is a year will go fast. So John, you and I need to decide what our intentions are, communicate that to the board, and I would say I'm still learning, and I would hope to be here way beyond March of next year. But I am subject to be reappointed as well, as is John.
Mike, would you like me to explain what happened in my situation, just so everybody's on the same page? Because I don't know that everybody is aware.
Yeah, well, a question to Harry Walker. Harry, do we want to do that at this moment of the meeting, or do we want to defer that?
I think that let's preserve it for executive session. I think we have an executive session
gotcha.
coming later. Yeah.
Okay, all right, that's what we'll do. All righty, so board recruitment, board succession, which is really the next piece. I think the question is if we have board members that we know of that are choosing not to be reappointed, that would be a succession opportunity for us to engage. So I would say to our board members, if you know at a moment that in time that's appropriate that you will not seek reappointment, I think in my capacity as governance chair, let me know. So then we can then proceed to figure out how we can advocate for a succession. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So the next item of other responsibility is board education. And we have in our packet, I think, 2 seminars that are available. I don't know if we have any history of going to these seminars. I just had them in my hand here. The one is the American Hospital Association. The other one is Vital. Do we have any experience with these? Has anybody ever gone to these?
I'm not aware. I mean, each board member speak for themselves. I'm not aware that we have shared the information with the board members. We have with the Governance Institute, we have a contract, I don't think, or deal with them, so they get provide information. In the past, when we usually do an annual board retreat and we do try to wrap some educational things around that. And but I would highly encourage board members to, if they see educational opportunity, or there's also, if you look at, are we still sending out stuff from the Governance Institute, about, there's something, online stuff. There are a lot of different educational opportunities. So if board members are interested, for them to, add skills or add information. So,
Let me take the responsibility to reconnect to the opportunities of the Governance Institute and get that a little formal so we can be apprised of what's available. So I'm not aware that I have received anything lately, although I might have missed it.
is it still in the, are we still using board effects? And that's something we probably need to talk about, but is it in the board effects stuff, Tamika? Do we still send it out in there?
So we don't send it out through Board Effects, but they do send out an email weekly. And I know John Corlett gets it because
Yeah.
he tells me about it. So I don't know if you don't receive it, then let me and Veronica know so that we can make sure that they have your email address.
But I agree with you, Mike. There's an opportunity here if you can look for ways to improve them. I see you got a couple of hands raised, but there's an
Yeah.
opportunity to see, you look at that with fresh eyes and see if there's a better way to do it. But
Yeah, John Corlett and then Dr. Alexander.
Oh, thanks, Mike. I was to say, the Vital conference, that's America's Essential Hospitals, and that's the group of mostly safety net hospitals, so a lot of public hospitals as well as some nonprofit hospitals. It's kind of a smaller, relatively small. I mean, AHA is like a huge event. I mean, and so if I was going to go to one, if I would go to one for the first time, I might start with the America's Essential Hospitals because there'd be more people, that are kind of like us, in that a lot more public hospitals. But I'm sure, like, I know Allison probably in the GA folks, government affairs folks, participate with these organizations, and they're really helpful, particularly I would think now with everything that's sort of on the table, including hospitals, I think are on the table, in DC these days. It might, for trustees who want to kind of get up to date on what those issues are, it wouldn't be a bad idea. So.
All righty. Well, let me keep that in front of us. We've got a few months before we have to probably make a commitment, but let me take the responsibility to get us thinking about that. And maybe, and I don't know what expenses are involved, but we should be aware of that as well. We do have a board of trustee expense and reimbursement policy that I think was the last formal action. So we'll start there, review that, and look at the budget and find out what's available, if anything, and we can make appropriate decisions.
If I could just interject, on the America's Essential Hospitals, Allison and I just met with the current president and CEO while we were in DC a couple of days ago. And Dr. Shahadi is actually on the planning committee of this conference.
Oh, good.
So unfortunately, he's not here. He's in Lebanon right now, but he could really give you some detailed information on the presentations and what got accepted so that at least you can make an informed decision over whether the topics seem really relevant to you as a board member versus, other roles within the institution.
Terrific. Well, it's great that we have an inside resource like that. So more information to come on that particular subject and requirement. Future subjects that I would also ask to put before this board are the impact of these big third-party contracts that are sort of system-wide, and how we how we decide to hire them, how we keep an eye on them, and how we account for their performance. And where that border is between big system-wide contracts is not clear to me, but it strikes me that that part of the opportunity to strengthen our oversight responsibilities is to keep an eye on these big system-wide projects. One, to understand the impact of them, but two, to make sure that these folks are doing what we expect them to do. As a new board member, frankly, I've been amazed at how many third parties we have working on our behalf. And without a scorecard, it's hard to keep it straight. And some of them are smaller and more focused. Some are very large and really very broad in their scope. I think those are the ones that come to mind. And there's vast experience on how these third parties have impacted complex organizations. Certainly the city of Cleveland. Sharon, you've got some experience. Ron, you certainly saw plenty of that at UH. And I personally would benefit from hearing from those who have this experience of how we can fulfill our fiduciary responsibilities and get the benefit of these experts and not lose sight of the two. So I would say that I will be working with, I think, Dr. Alexander in this particular case to identify one or two of these as a starting point so we can begin to shape how we think about them and can begin to evaluate them. So I would be interested in any opinions from you and experience of where we start on that one. If there's one in particular that you find interesting, compelling, or concerning, that might be a good case in point. I am reflecting on the Ernst & Young audit.
Exactly.
I was
going to say, Mike, usually we used to pull that from our ERM, Enterprise Risk Management assessment that's done, but because we didn't really have that, I think that would, to me, would probably be one of the better places to start.
Okay.
And the other ones, I mean, we do
have ERM functioning. It wasn't the internal audits what fell apart. So obviously we have a lot of irons in the fire going forward with that.
But I think, Maureen, that my comment is usually we would look at the ERM assessment of what they're evaluating and look at those and identify those that we believe are high risk or high volume or high dollar amount to do the assessment on. And we're going to just go back to Mike's point. That's how we did it down the street, Mike.
Okay.
And I think that's extremely important also because it will help us understand where resources are being expended and if in fact we're doing competitive bid or kind of sharing opportunities for vendors to do things, or if we have the appropriate relationship with a vendor who is receiving large system-wide contracts from us. Because I believe in the case of Ernst, most particularly, I think we were all a little bit stunned because they seemed to have a substantial relationship with us, but they weren't very partner-like in their recent deportment. So I think it will allow us, Mr. Summers, to have a better monitoring of where resources are going and how they're being expended, and if we have satisfactory performance, if in fact we can do this kind of a review.
Are we talking about a threshold though? I'm just assuming there's all kinds of third party, and so what would that threshold be, and what's that process in terms of determining whether or not we're happy with the services? Because I agree with the comments about some concerns with that particular contract.
Yeah, there's a lot to learn about that. I know supply chain plays a big role, as well as now obviously audit and compliance. So yeah.
To Nancy's question, I think we do want to establish a threshold. We don't want to overreach here. However, above us, however we figure out that is, I think part of our challenge is to come to some sense of what that threshold is, and then take appropriate actions, whatever that is. Somebody else had a thought?
Mr. Summers, yes. Robin Bear has a comment to make. I'm sure she's going to say what I was thinking. So go ahead, Robin.
Oh, yeah, Robin, sorry.
Thank you. I was just going to say, as the board continues to think through the design, think through if you want to evaluate based off of individual contract or aggregate by third party. So for the example that we're talking about here, there's multiple contracts awarded to that single vendor.
Right.
But an individual contract might not meet the threshold that the board feels is appropriate for that oversight. So just as you're thinking through the control environment that you want to create, recommend keeping that in mind.
I think that you're correct on that. And again, that's another concern. There's probably a threshold that would require board approval or board involvement. And so it is not uncommon for somebody to go out under a lower threshold and get 2 or 3 contracts under that lower threshold to avoid having to come back to the board. So of course, we would have that in mind, Mike, when we make these decisions about what the threshold will meet. I don't think we stick it in the way that it's not collective. It has to be collective because that's how we'll catch these issues. If they exist. If they exist.
And I would
Yes.
say in a previous meeting today, Ron D, you raised the question about change orders and the threshold there.
Mhm.
So it strikes me there may be some threshold conversations that we need to get a little clear on at a variety of levels, and then maybe pick our focus from there.
Mhm.
So, all right. So in fact, on the threshold question, I know, I think Rondi, you expect, or we expect to get some feedback of where those change orders are perhaps at this next board meeting.
I think what I wanted was the education on what those thresholds are, and
Yeah,
then
we'll have it
validation.
before the board meeting here.
Yeah, and just validation that those change orders were compliant with those standards. I don't want a full report on them unless, there's an issue. I'm trying to educate myself, just like we're trying to do with this committee, trying to improve how we run.
So the notion of thresholds, I think, are before us in a variety of ways. And so we'll work throughout our year to try and get clarity on all of that. And I will work with Dr. Alexander and her staff to understand where we are today and how we can sharpen up our understanding as board members. So I will take that responsibility. Anything more on system-wide contracts? I think you've given some good advice here, and I appreciate it. All righty. I think it's a point in the meeting where we will move into executive session. So I'd like to ask for a motion to move into executive session to discuss hospital trade secrets as defined by Ohio Revised Code 13333.61, to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion of compensation of a public employee, and to conference with public bodies attorneys to discuss pending or imminent court action. So do I hear such a motion to move into executive session?
So moved.
Second? So moved and
Second.
seconded that we adjourn to executive session. I will call the roll. John Corlett,
Yes.
Maureen D,
Yes.
Sharon Dumas,
Yes.
Ron Jasinski,
Yes.
Nancy Mendez,
Yes.
John Moss,
Yes.
Harry Walker,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So it's unanimous. We will adjourn to executive session.
I think.
Yes,
Okay.
so I think all members are here. We are back in public session. We have no action to take. And unless there's any further business to come before us, I will adjourn this meeting. Is there any such business?
No, just
Seeing
thank you,
none?
Mike, for your
Seeing
first
none?
meeting. I thought it went very well organized. Thank you very much.
And you're early, you're finishing early. Congratulations. First time. Now we're gonna hold you to it.
All righty.
That
Thanks.
seems to be the
Well
trend for
done.
2025.
Well done,
Goodbye.
and
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah. How did you know?